we want to go to that universal aspect of logical levels. And that universal way of looking at logical levels is how you categorize things around you. And that categorization is the way in which you make meaning of life around you. Now, I'll give a basic example of what I mean, and then we can then move it into how this affects your values, and your values being the generalization about experiences that are important to you. You want, I can assure you, I can say this for sure about each one of you, is that you want to experience more value. Who doesn't, right? You want to experience more value in yourself. You want to experience more value in your life. Why? Because this is what fulfillment is, right? When you experience value, you're experiencing fulfillment. You are fulfilling your values. Logical levels is how you organize that structure. Now, you might think, oh, well, that's how important can that be? Well, it's essential because without that organizing structure, you can't make sense of this. It's like your garage might have all of the tools you need, but if your garage is a mess and you can't find the tools, what good are the tools? So logical levels works that way. Logical levels helps you organize and understand what's important to you and how you make meaning. It's so important that people actually are using this in sales. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later, because when I recognized it, I was like, wow, this person is amazing how he was able to organize this, but he understood logical levels. And teachers can use this in an extraordinary ways. My mentor, Steve Andreas, understood logical levels so well that he organized his trainings according to the logical levels. Why? Well, because that's how we learn. And it was genius the way that he put these trainings together to make them so understandable. I mean, he was taking some of the most complex and sophisticated subjects and can make it so understandable. That was one of his gifts. And I know for a fact that that gift wasn't just something that came out of nowhere. It was from his understanding of logical levels. So real basic logical levels is when you have a set of categories, the higher you go up on these categories, the more general the categories become and the more inclusive they become. When you go down the logical levels, the more exclusive and specific the categories become. So if we start with car, all right, if you say we have, okay, car, and that's a category. If you think about, you can even think about what just went off in your mind right now. Did you see a car? Did you see an image of a car? Somehow you had to know what I was talking about when I say the word car. You may have seen a prototypical car, meaning it might not be a specific car you've ever seen, but it's a representation of a car. It represents all of the cars you've ever seen and possibly any future car you might ever see. So that's a category. If you crack that category open, you're going to find every car you've ever seen. That's what creates this category and your understanding of car. And by the way, this is also how language works, because if I said, get in your car and come here to my home, your mind doesn't go to a dictionary inside there and looks up every single word that I just said and defines that word, says, okay, get in my car. Get means to move. In means inside something. Car is a machine. You're not doing that, right? If you did, you would be way, way behind. You would still be trying to process sentences I said 5 minutes ago. That's not how we think of language. How we're able to process language so quickly is because there are representations that fire off in our mind very, very quickly with every word. So I say car, you probably see a car. Some of you might not be as visual. You might be more auditory. You could hear a car. You could think of what it feels like to sit in a car or touch a car. That's all possible too. More than likely, you saw a car. So that's one category. Now, if I wanted to go up the logical levels to a higher, more general category, I could say, okay, all vehicles with wheels, right? At this higher logical level, I am including cars, but I'm also including a lot more. And remember what I said, as we go up the logical levels, it's more general, it's more inclusive. So we're including something else. We're overlooking the differences of the previous category, and we're including more similarities. We're overlooking the differences between a car and a bike and a wheelbarrow and whatever other vehicle has wheels, and we're putting them all in one category. So we're overlooking the differences and we're paying attention to what's common to all of them. They all have wheels. And then if we want to go to a higher logical level, we could say transportation. We're including cars, we're including anything with wheels, but we're also including any type of transportation, even if it doesn't have wheels. So now airplanes and boats are now part of this larger category, this larger, more general category where we're focusing on what they all have in common. They're all means of transportation. So the higher you go up, the more general it becomes and the more inclusive it becomes. Bigger and bigger categories. Now, if we go back to the level of car and we go down the logical levels, that means we're getting more specific. So if I went from just a car, which includes anything we would call a car, and I went to green cars, well, now we're excluding all cars except for green ones. So now we're getting more specific. And then if I wanted to go even further down, I could say green Mercedes. All right. So now not only are we excluding any cars that are not green, we're excluding any cars that are not Mercedes as well. So we're getting more specific. So I think you got the idea now. So as you go up the logical levels, more general, focus on what's common, the common element. And as we go down, we're getting more and more specific about it. Everything you think about has a logical level to it, because how you understand it, and a lot of this is unconscious, by the way, how you understand it is where is its place and how you logically categorize it. So what do I mean by logical? Well, this theory that Gregory Bateson came up with is actually based on a mathematical theory of abstract math, that anything that is not the actual, it is conceptual, is at a higher logical level. So for example, the number 2 is not the same thing as 2 apples. It's at a higher abstract level, that it's a category. It's saying 2. So it could be 2 apples, but it could also be 2 oranges. It could be 2 people. It could be 2 animals. So the category is at a higher logical level because it contains whatever is inside of it and refers to it. So this gets back to what I was saying about meaning. So right now I'm teaching, and I'm not really thinking too much about the meaning of what I'm doing here. Like, I know what I'm teaching, I know the meaning of what I'm teaching, but I'm not thinking of like what other meaning this has for me. However, I could imagine stepping outside of myself right now and looking back at myself. We all have this ability. It's called disassociation. And I can look at myself and say, what does this mean to me? And being sort of outside of myself, it is kind of an illusion, but that feels very real to us. And look back and reflect on myself. When I'm in that position, I'm at a higher logical level because I'm stepping back and referring to myself. Your self-esteem is at a higher logical level than your belief about who you are, because you're thinking about yourself. You're going to a higher category and thinking, okay, now that I look at all that contains me, what am I? How do I make meaning of this? And how you feel about that is how we get self-esteem. Now back to what I was saying about what's logical. Numbers have that logical progression. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's a logical progression to those numbers. No matter which way you go, it's connected by logic. And we do the same thing in the way that we categorize things. How we categorize ourselves, how we categorize other people, how we categorize experiences. There's always a logical connection to each one of them. We have this tendency to think that our thoughts and our ideas just kind of float around aimlessly, chaotically, that even our experiences are just kind of somewhere in our head, just kind of floating around. It's like, no, they're all connected by a sense of logic, a logic that you create, a logic that can actually be changed. And when you change the structure and the order of these things, it can wildly change the way you feel about things, how you feel about yourself, how you feel about other people, how you even create meaning of the reality that you believe you are living in right now.